Yo, the healer and the dreamer astrology for a new age. Chaos and cosmos, the search for meaning. We're going to talk about Saturn in Pisces, Pluto in Aquarius, and a Beltane check-in. Yo, everyone, this is MC Starman. I'm with Dayana, lovely
Hello.
Dayana Robinson, my friend. And here we are doing a deep check-in into WTF is going on.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm surviving. I definitely think about our talk on Saturn and Pisces a lot and keeping a safe container for everything that's coming up because it's one thing to be emotional and feel like my emotions are on edge, but it feels like a lot more is coming up than just emotions. And so, yeah, day by day.
Well, to put it all in perspective, we are going through the eclipse season.
Yes,
We're
that's
going
true.
through Mercury retrograde.
Hmm.
So those are two very intense things. But, I wanted to do this video to look like a little bit of a retrospect into what we talked about in terms of Saturn and Pisces and what does that feel like energetically now that we've had some time to get used to Saturn and Pisces? And then also Pluto in Aquarius. And then Pluto's just starting retrograde and be moving out of Aquarius, quite rapidly here. So how's that been going for you? I mean, I guess we can start with Saturn and Pisces.
Hmm.
How does that feel to you?
Kind of like I just said, just a lot coming up, a lot of containment needed, um, a lot of witnessing a lot of mental health issues, needing to take extra care of myself and my mental health, but also those around me, my community and friendships and family, witnessing a lot of episodes have come up. And I think everybody always, especially in our day and age in this culture, that's constantly a topic, but it definitely seems more prevalent the last few weeks. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah,
What have
I
you
think that
noticed?
I agree with that pretty much, really. It's the mental health slash spiritual health component.
Mm-hmm.
It's really huge. Uh, uh, the necessity to really be a strong container for others. The two fishes and we did a video today with Ina on Christ as a symbol of the self and the age of Pisces and the two fishes and so with Saturn and Pisces, it really feels like we're having to really revisit that archetypal structure of the Redeemer and the redeemed, what is needed for us to find, that's what I called it, the quest for meaning, so that to me, I think Saturn in Pisces really takes a look at meaning from a very emotional, very cathartic, very like, oh, whoa. And if I don't have a safe container, if I don't have a real strong sense of self and a really strong sense of what I'm about, this could be very challenging, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You want to
Seeing
show
that a
the pictures
lot.
that we had?
Yeah. Beautiful Saturn and Pisces time. It's beautiful and a lot.
So the two fishes, the what Jung sometimes refers to as Christ and Satan or evil and the two brothers, and then we have Saturn, eating his children, the ruler of Aquarius and of a Capricorn, and so we've been going through a lot of the integration of Saturn and in Aquarius and Capricorn. Now it's Saturn and Pisces. So I think there's almost a certain religious or spiritual faith needed, a time, a need for transcendence and surrender you know, that really is that component of mental health, spiritual health, that is so necessary. And where do we fit it in that? Does that make sense to you?
It does. It also tweaked my memory to also witnessing since this COVID crisis. There's been a lot of people turning back to Christianity, like more young people and all ages, but like more young people interested in Christianity than I've ever heard of before, and some big figures and a lot of people. And it's interesting because when I was growing up, I think I definitely respected that a lot of people had those values, but there's also a backlash where a lot of people felt very frustrated by those values and what they had produced or what was said was produced by them, aka like the war and things like that, which I don't think it's so simple as to say it's because of a religion, but there's definitely a lot of connections there.
I think Jordan Peterson has been a big factor in this need for a spiritual connection and a returning to what Jung called the religions, you know, Christianity, but Buddhism and all the major religions of the world. He called them psychotherapeutical systems. They're actually systems of psychic hygiene. You know, they allow us to engage with the unconscious in a healthy way. And Saturn often is associated with the unconscious, and then Pisces, you know, also, you know, what is going on in the depth of the emotions, you know. So having a spiritual system to rely upon, a strong spiritual practice, where we talked about the strong container, huh? It's interesting. So you have a Saturn return going on. So your Saturn is in early Pisces.
Yeah.
And then I have the Sun in early Pisces as well. So we're both experiencing this Saturn really strongly. How are you experiencing? What is Saturn saying to you?
There's definitely been like layers unfolding as this last few weeks have come in. I remember trying to do my morning pages last weekend and writing, being like, I don't really get what this whole Saturn Pisces is about yet. And then I kept writing and doing my pages. And by the end, I was like, oh, I get it now. Like all these courses I want to do and all these things I want to learn. And I was trying to figure out like how many courses is too much while I work full time and do my astrology studies. And then I ended up just signing up for one so far, but really wanting to do a lot more. And my Saturn's in the third house, which is common to be associated with wanting to be a student and wanting to learn more. So that was a funny reflection that morning. Yeah. Something else I just thought of as you're sharing about Christian, kind of tying back to the Christianity part for a sec. I just finished this book, Saturn by Liz Green. It's an amazing book. Really good. It took me one of the longest Liz Green books to read, even though it was one of the it is the shortest one I've read.
You haven't done the Astrology of Fate yet.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you went through that one faster than Saturn?
No, I guess it was close, but yeah, that one took longer. That's like 3 times as much. But the reason I'm sharing this is because right in the beginning of the book, she has this great quote, and I wrote it down too, but before Christianity, evil wasn't so evil. And it just makes me think a lot right now about part of the mental health I'm seeing is people are like blaming others or blaming each other, blaming society. And I noticed that in myself. And there's this wanting to like, and then when you have a religion or something that's a mental construct, there's this need to like, oh, well, this is how it's figured out. Or this, like it gives the inner authority over so that you can step back. And to say things like evil wasn't so evil, I think it's showing that there was a relationship with evil versus just putting it aside and saying, well, that's bad, don't do that.
Well, we just did a video with Ina on chapter 5 of Eon, where Jung deals with Christ as a symbol of the self, and he talks about evil, you know, and it's a very interesting discussion. But you know, the place of evil in the early church, there was a reaction to the teachings of Gnosticism, who saw Christ and Satan as brothers, and kind of co-ruling, and they saw the first part of the age of Christ, of Pisces, to be ruled by Christ, and the second half by the Antichrist. Anyway, it's a very fascinating volume, and we get into it really deeply with Ina on that. So if you're interested in that, Christianity and the process of individuation, but that this whole myth of Christianity is actually a symbol of this process of individuation, this crucifixion. We all go through this confrontation of opposites, where we crucified by the dark side of our personality and the light side of the personality, this conflict of opposites that is such an important component of our human growth, and so having those insight as part of our practice, and a religious practice where we can actually surrender and take shelter of transcendent practices that help us connect with the unconscious in a divine manner, really eases the collective, the collective psychosis, really. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about Saturn and Pisces. Now let's talk about Pluto in Aquarius. I used the star, the water bearer, as a card for the Aquarius. And then we have Hades wearing his mask that makes him invisible, and you got his dog Cerberus, and you got hell. So the Lord of Hell, the place below, the riches and power of the Lord of Death and Transformation, in the sign of the water bearer Aquarius, from 2023 to 2044. So this is going to be long-lasting changes. And so Pluto came into Aquarius at the end of March, right at the beginning of spring, so it's fresh. And again, this is going to be long lasting. So what is to you this Pluto in Aquarius? How are you seeing it?
I feel like I'm definitely still getting the flavor of it, but I've been noticing a lot of something that's come to me, and maybe it's just my brain more than anything else, but is just a reorganizing how we do things. And I think a lot of people got very fired up over the COVID times, and now when you're trying to implement those new realities, new ideas of how reality should go, new groups, new communities, new organizations, there's been a lot of growing pains, and also I think hard truths with like also how groups are run and how organizations are run prior to that. Even a lot of new awareness coming out around how that's done, and maybe some of the darker aspects to how that has gone on for so long. But
Yeah,
yeah.
in the video we did on Pluto in Aquarius, we talked about how Pluto will come into Aquarius, turn retrograde, go back into Capricorn, then again come back into Aquarius, then again come back into Capricorn, and then finally at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, Pluto finally gets into Aquarius for good. So, the last time Pluto changed sign, it came into Capricorn, and it was kind of like an immediate shift. It was not of that dancing back and forth. And then we had the crash, the economic crash, boom. And that was the beginning of Pluto in Capricorn. So intuitively now, what does that look like for you, Pluto in Aquarius?
I think that we're getting our first little preview of the challenges to come, but I think there's still like having to go back into Capricorn and still reorganize ourselves and finish up those kind of challenges, or if it was a course load, we're jumping, getting a preview of what will come, but we have to go and still write the exam and finish up the last class. And so definitely holding my breath a lot in the state of the world. I've also been hearing and watching a lot about how connected Aquarius as a sign is connected with cryptocurrency, which makes a lot of sense. And so it's been interesting to witness a bit through my friends who are very into it, which I'm not savvy fully on cryptocurrency, but just watching and witnessing when things line up. And there's been a lot of shifts, and then I bet you there will be more shifts as Pluto goes retrograde today and then goes back into Capricorn in June this year, and then it'll stay back in Capricorn until January of next year. And it's interesting because it goes right back to 27 degrees of Capricorn, which is the Pluto return for the states. So they have one last bit of their Pluto return as well. There's a lot of like Pluto is definitely, there's a personal level to it, and it's in my first house, and I feel like there's this pull I want to be personal, but it's very collective, and it feels so very collective. And it's reorganizing how we organize ourselves, and I can see politics shifting a lot with that too over the next couple of years.
The Pluto sometimes, well, in Liz Green's book, it's identified with the Great Mother, and one of the early names of the Great Mother was Chaos. So Chaos as the feminine deity in which everything is born from. In the Greek myth of creation, Eurynome, the feminine aspect of the sacred, the sacred mother, Eurynome, she rubs her hand, and a snake is born out of her hands, and then she couples with the snake, and from the trembling of the relationship, the rivers and the mountains and the oceans are born, and that that feminine archetypal nature of nature herself, of the chaos of nature, which seems wild and ferocious and uncontrollable. Chaos in Greek means the ultimate order, and so then it's that feminine basis to the universe that's chaotic, and so Pluto is really associated with that. So I think that with Pluto in Aquarius, there's a certain intellectual, communal kind of chaos that's brought into it, huh? Where what is the meaning of all of this? It's an air sign, and then on the other side of that we have Cosmos. Cosmos is the incredible order in which the universe is arranged, so that even though it's chaotic, it's also so well ordered. All here we are at Beltane, the beginning of the brightest time of the year. So, everything is so exact. The eclipses, Mercury retrograde, everything going on. And it's like this chaos, and yet it's so well organized. So I think that this chaos and this cosmos, with Saturn and Pisces, and with Pluto and Capricorn in Aquarius, we really want to feel the meaning of it all, and there's a certain grounding that comes when we see that there are powers that play that are much greater than social media, and there's powers that work that are much greater than the 6 o'clock news, or the 24/7 news cycle, and that we need to anchor ourselves in that cosmos and in that chaos through our practice, Saturn and Pisces, but also through this connection of meaning that comes when we integrate those two archetypes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Been witnessing that a lot. Actually, it's funny. I was in the sauna yesterday, and gentleman had very interesting back tattoos. And I commented. He said, "Oh, it's the Son. Well, I'm not maybe butcher it. The Son, the Christ, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity."
Okay.
And we didn't actually talk past that, but then it really set my mind off to thinking about how this, like, there's been a lot of talk of like the balancing and connection of the masculine and the feminine in almost every part of, I don't know, maybe it's just this culture in this new age world, but it's very commonly talked about in the last, especially 10 years. And it's really exciting to see a more recognition instead of the suppression of the opposite within ourselves. And when we get
Beautiful.
to that sweet spot, you kind of hit this like flow state wherein you can balance out allowing the chaos for your life and having organization in your life. You hit this flow state where life is always exciting and yet you are always working with purpose. And I think that is like the Holy Spirit comes through, or whatever you associate and connect with. But the balance of the feminine and the masculine definitely is a launching point. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was beautiful. Thank you for that. So let's look at the chart here of Beltane. So this is we call it a Beltane check-in, and this is a loaded chart.
This is going to be this Saturday.
And that's right. Friday is the full moon, and so here we still have, the full moon is still almost in orb, and we have that Mercury retrograde, Sun Uranus triple conjunction. That's really insightful, and Mercury, Uranus, and then is genius, and we'll see the conjunction of Mercury and Uranus later in the month. But then we have that Mars, Pluto, Jupiter T square, which is really energetic and powerful. And we talked about that in the full moon eclipse, Scorpio full moon eclipse a video of that energy that's building up. And that T square is superimposed on a grand kite. So we have Moon in Scorpio, Mars in Cancer, mutual reception between the two of them, and then Neptune in Pisces, a powerful water grand trine with Pluto, Mars, Pluto as the spine of the kite, and Pluto in the 10th house, and then forming a T square with Mars and Jupiter. So if we looked at, so Beltane is the beginning of the summer quarter of the year. It's when the sun is the highest. It's the brightest quarter of the year. And so this is a Beltane chart. So it really announces this season, this summer season, the astrological summer season. And basically it says it's going to be full of Mars, Moon, Neptune, so very deeply emotional. Pluto in the 10th house, right there on the cusp, coming in between Aquarius and Capricorn in the 10th house. So the chaos factor, the intensity, and then you add a T square with Jupiter and Mars, very willful, very engaging. This is there's a certain amount of energy we have to put up to meet with the intensity of the chaos. And I think that we're going to be experiencing that throughout this astrological summer here. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I also keep noticing how we're going to be feeling like the Grand Cross. So I feel like right before the full moon passes through Libra here, it's going to be triggering this T square you're speaking of. So we're going to have a little reckoning before, and then it's going to shift.
and Mercury and the Sun are much closer. So with that, yeah, so that the Grand Cross, yes. So and we talked about this pretty much in detail in our Scorpio solar eclipse, lunar eclipse video, which I will put a link to that. Also put a link to the Saturn in Pisces and the Pluto in Aquarius for you to go check out. These are really informative videos on helping you deal with these things, with this chaos and cosmos and the quest for meaning. Do you have anything else you want to point out about the chart?
More of a question.
Sure.
So if this is like a snapshot of what this summer astrological summer is going to look like potentially, what kind of we know what it would look like, but how could we resource ourselves in moving through this kind of energy dynamic throughout the next few months?
Well, because of the grand trine in water sign, then being present with the feeling, with the emotions, and so, with Neptune in Pisces, Moon in Scorpio, Mars in Cancer, and Mars, Moon being in mutual reception with each other, then being able to engage and communicate and express creatively, not just creatively, but also, an emotional practice, prayer, walks in nature, making art, any way, and music, any way we can express the feeling tones, in our society, our feeling nature is not developed. We give much more importance to rational thinking than to feeling nature. And so often the feeling nature carries the shadow. And with a Pluto, Moon, Mars, Neptune, Grand Trine, the darkness of the chaos is expressed in the emotions. So then that Saturn in Pisces, creative container, spiritual container for the grief of the emotions. I think that, grieving and also this word redemption, this is a certain need for us to look at the sins of the past and to gain redemption, which is again a very Christian concept.
Yeah.
Which we talk about a lot in that Eon video with Ina.
I'm looking forward to watching that.
Cool. Fascinating. Did that answer your question?
It did. It brought up two things that reminded me of like phrases that I catch myself seeing and also using in my life. One of them is you got to feel it to heal it, which is kind of hard. I don't always think that's the case, but often we can avoid the feelings. And if we would just feel it, we could heal a lot more. And the other one is I've shared it on these videos before actually, but it's emotions transform energy, energy creates movement, and movement is change, and change is the essence of life. Which is just really helping to empower myself, or to empower one to embrace feelings as a force driving you forward versus this thing that's overwhelming and daunting and avoidable or wanting to suppress.
I think all of those fields are involved in trying to make the energetic progress. I think with Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, this is a lot about, there's not a whole lot of room for feeling victimized. It's like more like okay, this is my reality. It's, it's kind of like let's do this, kind of. And I was thinking about it, we're going to be experiencing that Jupiter, Mars, Pluto T-square, and I have a Jupiter, Mars, Pluto T-square in my own chart, and it's being triggered by that Saturn. So, so then I'm really feeling, I think that collectively we're feeling like we talked about in the last video, lead, follow, or get out of the way. It's like we need to find solutions to these problems, and we need to engage because it's our life, really. And so a big sense of courage being needed to face the chaos and the cost and find our place in the cosmos and find meaning in all of that.
It's exactly what I'd picture with Jupiter, Mars, Pluto. Jupiter is like expansive and it's big energy, and then going to Mars is like driving it forward, so they work together so well. But then with Pluto, it's like, okay, big energy driving forward. Pluto is like all of society and how we interact with the shadows. Yeah,
That's
powerful
beautiful,
times.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And again, not to being victimized is really important.
Yeah.
And so we're going to end this video with a quote from Viktor Frankl. You know Viktor Frankl?
No.
Viktor
Oh,
Frankl.
well, sorry, just reading Man's Search for Meaning. I've heard of that.
That's a famous book. It's a Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was an intern in a concentration camp.
Wow.
In Nazi Germany. He was a Jewish fellow who survived, and he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is a study of what was the factor that made people survive such atrocious situation. And he pointed out that the people that lived through it had a meaning, they had a reason for surviving. They are, and so this in this book, A Man's Search for Meaning, explores that. And this is a quote. This is quoted in Alexander Rupert's Cycles of Transformation, one of the most important astrological books, Cycles of Becoming. Cycles of Becoming. Have you read that one? Cycles of Becoming?
No, I haven't.
Cycles of Becoming, Alexander Ruperty. In the introduction, he quotes this, and this is it was done in 1970s. In the 1970s, Alexander Ruperty made one tour of North America, and this book revolutionized astrology. And then he went back to France. He was a follower of, he was an osteopath and a follower of Dane Rudyard.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Alexander Ruperty.
Did he? So is this about? So after he lived through the Holocaust, he got into astrology?
No, Viktor Frankl.
Oh, Oh, yes. Okay.
Alexander
That's different.
Ruperty quotes Viktor Frankl.
Okay, makes sense. Here, do you want to share your beautiful quote here?
Yes. Why don't you read it?
Oh, okay. I'll try. Bear with me. As each situation in life represents a challenge to man and presents a problem for him to solve, the question of meaning of life may actually be reversed. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. Responsibleness is the very essence of human existence. So one should not search for an abstract meaning of life. Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is as unique as his specific opportunity to implement it.
So Jung also talked about that as being the development of personality, the finding of one's vocation, this meaning in my life that makes my life worth living. That was what Viktor Frankl saw as the key to people surviving the Holocaust and these incredible situations, these concentration camps. People who survived those had meaning. And so, in that sense, this meaning, this chaos and cosmos, this Saturn and Pisces, this Pluto in Aquarius, You know, there's a real need there to find one's meaning, this driving force, this vocation, this gift that I'm here to share with the world, to do the work, to do, you know, to really, I think, you know, the more I think about, you know, these two planetary alignments and what they mean to us, that's kind of where, you know, so far my studies take me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a big call out for finding your vocation and meaning in life right now to be able to tread the waters that are to come and that are here. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for supporting the Healer and the Dreamer YouTube channel. I'm MC Starman, Martin Comtois, and I'm with Diana Robinson. Reach out, ask questions, share, and we'll see you next time.
Keep that heart strong and so
Whoop,
much good love.
whoop, whoop, whoop.